A council of experts which advises the German government has delivered a grim assessment of the country's economic performance 6 months after Friedrich Merz took office. Deutsche Welle correspondent Arthur Sullivan joins us now from Berlin. Arthur, g'day. So this isn't the first time there have been gloomy reports about the German economy. What's the problem?
Yes, indeed. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but Germany's economy certainly is in a state of perpetual crisis these days, and you can't move without these kind of stories. It faces a complex range of challenges, but this latest news is quite significant because it's not so common for this group of economists, which offer independent advice to the German government, to be so critical. They give this annual update on the German economy, and this time they specifically criticise the current spending and investment plans of the government, and they issued a stark warning about Germany's ability to pay off its potential debts in the years ahead. And that's really not something that, when you consider that not so long ago Germany was the one telling and advising other countries in the EU that they had to get their debt in order. So what has gone wrong that Germany is suddenly in the opposite position? Well, there's a lot of things here, but 10 years ago, just when the EU was recovering from the global financial crisis, Germany was in unusually good shape. It had solid growth, very healthy figures by most economic indicators. But in the last few years, a lot of those core economic strengths have turned into vulnerabilities. Germany suddenly has its large industrial base, which was an economic driver. It's unable to adapt to this new era of decarbonisation and increased energy costs. Germany's export machine is not really able to cope in an age of tariffs and what appears to be a retreat from globalisation. And its world-famous car industry suddenly looks unable to compete in a sector which is rapidly pivoting towards electrification and which is increasingly looking towards China. So all of this is reflected in the country's really poor growth figures. For 4 years now, Germany's economy has barely grown at all, and there's really not much sign of that changing.
So the new Chancellor Friedrich Merz has been in office for 6 months, and he was elected partly on a promise to fix the economy. Does this indicate that he's not really on the right track?
It certainly does, certainly in the public's mind. So yes, when he came to power, largely it was to do with dissatisfaction on the part of the people with the previous government. So he promised he would borrow big, he would boost investment in infrastructure, in digitalisation, and of course in defence, which is a major topic in Europe at the moment. But recent polling shows that Merz has approval ratings of around 25%, which is one of the lowest of any German chancellor in recent history. Now, part of that is very much driven by this sense that these big promises he made on the economy, he's just not doing anything about it yet. Certainly there's no results to be seen. So he said, for example, that Germany would be changing its own very strict rules on how much money it could borrow, and that would fund this big economic reboot. But what a lot of those experts that I mentioned earlier said is that a lot of this extra borrowing currently looks like it's going to be funding things that Germany should be able to pay for without extra borrowing, things like welfare costs and pensions. And these structural changes that were needed, they may not actually happen to the scale that has been promised. Businesses and industry are increasingly critical of the government, saying that their situations are getting more urgent by the day. And a lot of these dire warnings that we've been hearing about, the consequences are going to soon be felt, maybe in terms of job losses and so on. We do have to caution, it's still quite early days. As you said, it's only 6 months since the government took power, but at the moment, there are not much results to be seen.
And what do Germany's economic woes mean for the rest of the world?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people could look at this and say, well, why does it matter if, Germany's struggling? I mean, so what? But Germany is still one of the biggest economies in the world, and it is by a distance the biggest in the EU. And its apparent decline could be interpreted as a reflection of Europe's wider economic malaise. And a big part of this story really here is China. So China's long-term development into an export and manufacturing superpower means that it has simply bypassed Germany and Europe in that regard. So, Germany has been overtaken by what was for years one of its biggest markets for its exports. Now it's increasingly looking like the other way around. And plenty of other countries in the world will see an opportunity in Germany's demise, where Germany once exported and built, they may see an opportunity to take that mantle. Now, at the moment, there's politicians in governments across Europe and, of course, in Germany, they're facing serious questions about how they can revive this situation, make their economies more innovative. But all the while, the challenges just keep getting bigger. They face huge bills on defence to meet the threat of Russian aggression. Their welfare and pension bills are just getting bigger by the year because their populations are getting older. And the bottom line here is that if Germany fails, Europe fails. And that has serious consequences for many other parts of the world, not just here in Europe.
OK, Arthur Sullivan there in Berlin. Blue Origin, the commercial space operator owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, has launched its orbital rocket for a second time.
Liftoff effective. Post motion.